So, pre-call preparation, we now have identified our ideal customer, we've put together our story, and now it's time to take that story and put together what I call a sales playbook, which is really the buying process questions, the questions that we're going to ask when we go in and make the call, stories that we're going to use, and objections and how to overcome them, many times with stories. But really having all this together and on paper so that we can start preparing and practicing before we go and start calling on prospects and customers. So what the hero or buyer is thinking, it's very important. We now understand what their pains and fears and wants and needs are, but it's no longer a selling process as much as it is a buying process. And science shows us that there are really 6 whys that we go through as buyers. Our brain goes through as we're thinking about making a buying decision. As we go through them, if we fail to get commitment to any of them, the sale will break down. So there's these 6 why questions and steps that we want to walk a buyer through. And at each step, we need to get commitment and agreement before we move on. Science shows that the decision to buy is not at the end, what we call the close. It is being made throughout the whole conversation, and we need to get commitment and agreement at each stage as we get a decision at the end. So basically what we're talking about here is not selling, it's working and serving and walking a buyer through this process that his brains or her brain's going through to make a decision. So the first question our brain goes through when we're buying something is, why change what I'm doing right now? That's the big question. Why should I change? And we want to use questions to kind of agitate and find the problems, pains, wants, and needs that they have. And some of them they may not realize they have. So by asking questions, we can probe and get them to verbalize and maybe understand and scope out how big those problems, pains, wants, and needs are. And then by asking more questions and get them to verbalize this out loud, get them to feel the pain of the problem. Get them to get the emotions going about these pains are bigger than I thought. That's why I should be changing. Why now? Well, we want to guide them with questions again. But why the hurry? What's the cost of waiting? Those are the kind of questions we want to talk about. Why they should make a decision soon. What is it going to cost them? Get them to verbalize what the costs are, the risks are of not changing. And then we found also that, the brain, if we give the brain a long time to decide or a lot of choices, the brain will want to procrastinate. The more choices, the more time, the more we're going to see procrastination. So why now? We want to talk about, get them to verbalize what the cost of waiting really will be. That this pain they've had, it'll be better to get it over with now than to wait. So why your industry solution? That's what the brain thinks of next. And there may be other solutions from other industries even that might be better than yours. So we just want to ask questions, talk about those pains again, and then lead them through and get agreement that our industry solution is really the best for the problems, pains, needs, and wants that you have right now, and get agreement at the end of this question. The next one is, why you and your company? The brain goes, okay, so why you and your company, you personally and your company? And again, by asking questions, we'll find that this is a primary component of trust. We need to build that trust. We need to first have people know us, then like us, and finally trust us. If they don't trust us, they're not going to buy. So we want to share stories, share relevant information to demonstrate our expertise and authority to build trust with confidence. If we do it with confidence, studies show that it's a huge component of trust. So by practicing, understanding, practicing, we can show confidence with this question. But we really need to start building trust with them by demonstrating our expertise and our authority. So the next question is, number 5, is why your product or service? I know you, I know your company, but why your individual product or service? Well, we have to hear, through asking questions and walking people through this process, Offer a clear and compelling reason for the buyer to choose our product or service. We've talked about profiling who the ideal customer is and building your distinct value to match their pains and your unique solution to solving it. So this is our story. This is back to the story part about we understand your pain and here is our unique solution. Here's the plan. If you take action on the plan, we're going to be able to get the results that you're looking for. And it all comes down to differentiation and having a value proposition, solutions that are really unique, but also important is that they've got to be valued by the buyer. The last one is why spend the money? You know, the thing we've got to do here is go back and re-agitate that fear of loss, that pain that they have, the wants and needs that they have, the gains they're trying to get. And re-agitate the fact, I mean, all through this process, we've been getting agreement after each of these steps and getting them to verbalize it. Yes, I agree with that. Yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. Now we're to the point where we're saying, it's time to spend the money. So we have to show them and agitate those emotions about pain and fear and demonstrate to them that putting this off is not the right thing to do. You're just extending that pain and fear, and that the money that I'm asking you to invest in this solution is money that you'll get a very good return on. So the keys to the buying process is to make sure we're handling objections as we go through the process, each of the steps, each of the questions. To get verbal agreement at each step so that as we move along, so that we're trial closing. We're not waiting till the end to try to get a close. We're trial closing throughout. We're getting agreement at each step so that we've got verbal agreement out loud that yes, they're in agreement, they're in agreement, they're in agreement. And then ask for the order. And the order might not be a sale. It depending on the situation, it might be another objective. It may be getting in to do an evaluation. It may be doing other things that are leading to the ultimate sale or proposal. But we need to ask for that order, ask for that agreement at the end, the big agreement, to get the order in quotes. Now we're getting to the end of our sales preparation, and that is building a sales playbook. You know, only 50% of salespeople make quota every year. Study after study shows only about half of salespeople make their quota, and only 10% really excel or really A players. You know, over the years, we've tried sales training, having managers ride along with people, sales meetings. Study after study shows there's little retention and very little learning. That only about 12% of when we go off to a sales training program do we take back and use. And when we bring it back and use it, who do we practice it on? We practice it on the customers. So the 10% that excel, it's because they're attuned to the buyer's emotions. They understand and put themselves in the buyer's mind. They ask the right questions. They're directed at wants, pains, needs, and fears. They walk through the proper sales process, but they have a script. And I put that in quotes because people don't want to hear that or wouldn't agree, I don't have a script. They do have a script. It's in their own words, but they use the same questions. They use the same stories. They use everything the same, these A players, and they're really good at it. And if we understand how they do it, what we ought to do is go and find out and put on paper how they go about making sales. That way we know that all our salespeople are doing it the right way, the best way. So that's what we call a sales playbook. Get all this information on paper that we've talked about so that we can build a sales playbook so that we can now practice. Practice and prepare. Prepare before we go into the game. You know, NFL team doesn't give the team the playbook on Sunday morning of the first game and expect them to go out and practice and learn and understand the playbook while they're playing the opponent. But that's what we ask salespeople to do. After we train them, we ask them to go out and practice on customers. So role playing is essential. You know, practice with each other. Know the plays so we can listen and focus on the customer and the prospect and the game that's going on. That's a way a football player or any kind of athlete, they know the plays. They don't even have to think about the plays. They're thinking about reacting, running the play, executing, They don't think about the play itself. And so that's what we got to get at. If we're going to be professional salespeople, we've got to start role playing and practicing on each other so that when we go into the game, we don't have to think about the plays. You know, there's an old saying, knowing is not enough, we must do. And doing, in this case, is practicing. You know, August Turek said golfers don't learn to be golfers, they practice to be golfers. And Confucius says, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. And that's what role playing is all about. Understanding, doing. So let's go back to our typical sales cycle. We spent a lot of time, and it's all on pre-call planning. We've been working on getting ready so that we can go out and play the game. And we're not practicing on customers. We've been practicing on ourselves, and we're ready to go into the game and do the battle. So the next step is opening the sales call. Then building value and solving problems. Then handling objections. And then negotiating and closing. So by building our program, our sales playbook, we're in a position to go in and do all of these things. And we've learned that what are the objections we're going to get? We have them in the sales playbook. We know how to overcome those objections. We know the stories we're going to use. We know the questions we're going to ask to build value and solve the problems. And we learned that we should be closing throughout the process, that at the end of each segment we should be asking and getting agreement that we're in agreement with that individual before we leave that step in the buying cycle.